You know, when Donald Trump brought JD Vance onto the ticket, he brought him to the forefront of American politics. And that's why I feel like that we need to stay focused on JD Vance as we go forward, because Donald Trump himself said that it really didn't matter who he picked as the VP because he would be running the show. He just needed a VP there in the worst case scenario that something were to happen to him. He needed someone to be able to lead on day one. And so the guy that he picked to do that is JD Vance. No matter how you feel about Vance, the one thing you got to understand is Donald Trump giving him that rub has now put him, if Donald Trump was to win, second in line to be president of the United States. So let's say that worst case scenario, something were to happen to Donald Trump, JD Vance is going to be your president. Let's say we actually have an election again in 2028. JD Vance could be the contender. He could be the guy running for president. So he is now in the political discussion to stay for a while. If Trump was to lose, he may very well ride off into the sunset. If not, we could be talking about JD Vance for a long time. And I'm going to continue to go back and play these clips, even though I'm sure it's never going to do any good in MAGA's world. I think it's good to show these clips, though, to remind people of how politicians truly are. They may not always agree with something. They may be dead set against something. They may not be able to stomach something. But if they see the money working, if they see the grift working, they'll follow it. And that's what JD Vance has done here, because let's go back and listen to this recording that was released where he's agreeing that, yeah, Donald Trump doesn't care about anyone but himself. Take a look.
And I cannot stand Trump because I think he's a fraud. Well, I think he's a total fraud that is exploiting these people, who is a total fraud.
I agree with you on Trump because I don't think that he's the person. I don't think he actually cares about folks.
But I think that I'm going to vote for third party because I can't stomach Trump. I think that he's noxious and is leading the white working class to a very dark place.
Well, he really should have listened to his gut, because Trump has definitely took the working class to a very dark place, and he did so by exploiting them. He did so by stoking the fires of their biggest fears and feeding them with nothing but lies and propaganda. What you got to understand, for those of you outside of Appalachia watching this that may not really understand why, you look at our part of the world and you say, man, how could people like that in that part of the world get behind someone like Trump? And trust me, I ask myself that question every day. But I do feel that I have a better understanding than most because I grew up right around it. And in this part of the world, we saw our part of the world sold right straight out from under us. The only thing left in a lot of these small towns in Appalachia to do for a living that's actually going to get you somewhere in life and be able to afford more things in this world is coal. And everything else that is here is retail. And so you have people that barely scrape by. A lot of people leaves this part of the world to find a better life, because if they would be honest and tell the truth about it, no one in our part of the world ever really wanted to dig coal. It's not something that people wanted to do. It's something that they had no choice but to do. And as time went on, we saw more and more things get sold right out from under us. The county that I grew up in, when I was growing up, we heard about this industrial park that was going to one day come, and it was going to give us all sorts of new opportunities. That thing never showed up. We heard about it our entire life. It never made it. Instead, what we have, if you turn up that road now, got a really nice bridge, a really nice road, and it goes right up and stops in the middle, just dead stops right in the middle of the mountains. And it was dubbed the bridge to nowhere. So that's the kind of promises that we were given, and that's the kind of promises that got broken. And then along comes Donald Trump. And he's recognizable. He's someone that they've watched on reality TV when they've came home from work every day. He's someone who's easily recognizable to them. They recognize that face, and they don't understand how the system works. They don't understand exactly how that they ended up in the mess that they're in, because they've not really studied politics. A lot of the main establishment Republicans really didn't speak to them too much either, because they were struggling. They were trying to get by. And so along comes Donald Trump. He's a recognizable face. And suddenly he starts telling them what the problem is. It's these evil Democrats over here. These evil Democrats are the ones that caused all your problems. And they start listening to the guy, not realizing that a whole lot of them are living off of Democratic policies. A lot of them are surviving and eating every day because of Democratic policies. I can't count the people in my part of the world that I know and I've talked with, and I've tried to say, hey, do you realize that if Trump's reelected and Project 2025 is put in place, Your mama's check and your check and everything is going to go away. Your livelihood is going to come right out from under you. But they don't care because they're listening to Trump and they're believing everything he says, that the immigrant coming across the border is their problem, that gay and trans people are their problem, that people of color are their problem. They buy into every bit of that rhetoric because they lived in such a hopeless place. But getting back to JD Vance, he's another one who saw this. He writes his book, Hillbilly Elegy. A lot of people starts talking about it. It becomes a talking point here in Appalachia. But what a lot of us had problems with that book is that it cashed in on all the stereotypes of Appalachia. It portrayed everyone in Appalachia as lazy and on drugs and didn't really tell you why that they got on drugs, all the things that led to that point. It didn't tell you any of those things. And it just glossed over and created this image of Appalachia that I don't feel is a true, authentic version of it. And so now we have JD Vance, who could be president. Something happened to Trump, or could be president after Trump is done with politics. And he's saying things like this in this next clip, how that we have to, or when I say we, I mean they intend to lead very ruthlessly. He makes no bones about what he intends to do. Take a look.
I think that the thing that we have to take away from the last 10 years is that we really need to be really ruthless when it comes to the exercise of power. I mean, look, I am a cynic about this and maybe even a little bit of a pessimist, but I think the challenge confronting American conservatives is that we have lost every major powerful institution in the country, except for maybe churches and religious institutions, which of course are weaker now than they've ever been. We have lost big business, we've lost finance, we've lost the culture, we've lost the academy. And if we're going to actually really affect real change in the country, it will require us completely replacing the existing ruling class with another ruling class. I say that knowing and hearing myself, it sounds really hard. It is really hard, but I don't think there's like a detent with these people. I don't think there's sort of a compromise that we're going to come with the people who currently actually control the country. Unless we overthrow them in some way, we're going to keep losing. And that's the challenge. Now, it's not easy. It requires us to build institutions. It requires us to support, alternative media institutions and alternative media programs. It requires us to elect different people at all levels of government. And it requires us to be willing to use the power vested in our constitutional republic to go after some of our enemies in big business.
So to those of you out there who haven't actually read Project 2025 and maybe thinks that we're just trying to use it as some sort of boogeyman to scare you, he's basically ripping right straight from it. He's basically pulling right straight from it when he says that we have to get everybody out that's in government and we have to replace them with yes men that will do exactly what it is that we say. That's what he's here for, folks. That is exactly why he's been chosen in this role, is because he's someone who believes in that you get in there and you fire everybody that disagrees with you. You surround yourself by people who will just say yes, and then you ruthlessly go after everyone that disagrees with you. He basically just gave you, for those of you that won't read Project 2025 because you think we're just trying to scare you with it, JD Vance basically just gave you the introduction to it. He basically just gave you the Cliff Note version of it for you to understand that's what they intend to do. And that may sound all good to some people in Appalachia. They may say, yeah, man, we need to get rid of all them people. We need to get people in there that'll work for us. The problem is they're not going to be working for you because they're going to strip away every Democratic policy that was put in place that actually helped you to get ahead. And again, that's why so many of us had such a problem with the book Hillbilly Elegy. It was an exploitation of Appalachia, just like Donald Trump. So I get that Donald Trump would pick this guy because they're both good at exploiting Appalachia. Vance couldn't stomach Trump, but he saw it working. And he realized, hey, we got to get the people to go in line with us. And that's what he's doing here, folks. That's exactly what he's calling for. But when he talks about how that they lost the institutions and they lost everything, it's because the ideas that the Republican Party had was no longer relevant. It's because as we were moving forward in society, the Republican Party was being left in the dustbin. If Donald Trump hadn't to come along, there wouldn't be a Republican Party today. Actually, there's not anymore. After watching the Republican National Convention, or as I like to call it, the MAGA meet and greet, the Republican Party of the Bush years, of Romney, I used to say our grandfather, but no, just of Mitt Romney, that's long gone. that doesn't exist anymore. And it doesn't exist because of politicians like Romney and George W. Bush and McCain, people who really didn't have any new ideas. They didn't know how to change and evolve with the world around them. So I put just as much blame on them for what has happened. I know they're the more decent of the bunch. I get that. I understand that they were for democracy, and I appreciate that. I understand that we're not always going to agree on everything, but had the Republican establishment been able to come up with some good quality ideas, then they might could have steered the boat in a different direction. But instead, they let this WWE Hall of Famer get up there and put his type of rhetoric on the main stage and stoke the fires and get everyone worked up who knew nothing about how the system works. So if Donald Trump is suddenly reelected and him and Vance starts ruthlessly tearing down everything that's put in place, it might sound good to Appalachians for just a minute. But what I would like to say to the people that grew up right around me, do you remember how you felt when that bridge went to nowhere? Do you remember how you felt when you drove up to the end of that road and you looked out at the mountains and went, shit, this was supposed to be our opportunity. This is where we were supposed to be able to feed our families. It's gone. Gee, I wonder why. Well, that's exactly what's going to happen if Trump's reelected and him and JD Vance ruthlessly tears down everything that is taking care of you and propping you up at this particular moment. I know that they got your emotions running high, but they got you mad at the wrong people. They got you mad at people that's never going to be a problem to you. You're never going to see or have to deal with in your life. If you live in some backwoods holler in Southeast Kentucky, I hate to tell you this, but you're sitting there worried about gay and trans people, there's never going to be a parade there. It's never going to happen. It's never going to come to your door, never going to knock on your door, never try to force you or bend you to believe what they're about. That's not what they're doing. They're just trying to live their lives the same way you were. The same way you were just trying to leave your life and you wanted to be left alone and you wanted to be able to make a living for your family. They're doing the same thing. You've got your anger directed at the wrong people. You're focused on all the wrong things here. And you're not looking at these two men that's in front of you that have exploited your culture. And it is a slap in your face. And it should piss you off. It does me, and it does a whole lot of us. There is way more blue dots here in these mountains in Appalachia than people realize. And we're sick and tired of seeing our people exploited. And you can hate us all day. You can cheer against us all day. You can root for us to be shut down all day long. But we're actually, whether you realize it or not, we're taking up for you. Even though it may come off like we're speaking against your leaders, so we're pissing you off. No, what we're really doing is trying to say we're tired of seeing our people exploited. We're tired of seeing our people made fun of and made a mockery of and used by politicians like Vance to his advantage. It's not the heartfelt, warm and fuzzy story you think it is, folks. That's not what it was. It was a guy who used democratic policies and democratic institutions to get where he got, and now he wants to tear it all down and rebuild it in his image and take away rights from anyone who disagrees or speaks out against him. That's not American. That's not what we're about. So when I'm sitting here, I know for a fact I've pissed off the majority of people in my part of the world. What you didn't realize is I was actually defending you and taking up for you. It's just that you got distracted by the WWE rhetoric and didn't realize it.